morning, everyone, and welcome to the Connection Corner. I'm Barb Nangle. I am Community Manager of Known Co-working. In a moment, I'm going to welcome our guests, Alex, Renee, and Alicia, and they're going to be talking about tattoos, their tattoos, and the stories behind them. Before I introduce them, though, I want to share a little bit about Known. It's a dynamic co-working community to connect people across their fields of expertise, endeavors, and experiences. And though Known started as a co-working space in downtown New Haven, and it's still the only co-working space in downtown New Haven, we moved our community to the virtual world once quarantine started. As a reminder, Known Co-working has hourly, daily, and monthly plans for dedicated desks and office spaces, as well as conference rooms and Zoom rooms available for rent. If you'd like to know more about the space, feel free to email me at barb@knowncoworking.com. You can also check us out on nhvknown.com or follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Known Co-working, and you can DM us there. I mentioned that we moved our community online when the pandemic arrived, and as a result, we now have 3 virtual programs. One is Digital Media Sync, the other one is this one, the Connection Corner, and the third is Pivot Talk. You can catch replays of all of our episodes for free on our website under Known Live and Events. Just briefly, DMS, Digital Media Sync, is your window to the digital world. It airs on Tuesdays at 8:30, and it's hosted by Julia Gooch. She is the social media maven of Agents of Branding. And next Tuesday, she'll be doing part 2 of digital marketing during the holidays with a focus on Google Ads. If you sign up for the Known email list, you'll get the download she mentioned in the last episode of Holiday Marketing. All of this is free. Pivot Talk is a virtual stage for businesses to share and learn as they grow. And this coming Friday, Pivot Talk will feature a professor from Yale School of Management who's going to talk about her research and how it informs what we've learned since March about working environments, whether they're at home or at work, and how to optimize them. That'll be at 2:00. And then this show, The Connection Corner, is a place for entrepreneurs, dreamers, artists, creators, thinkers, educators, and community members to share who they are, what they do, who they serve, and how. It airs approximately weekly at a time that is convenient for the guests. If you or anyone you know would like to be featured on any one of these shows, shoot me an email, barb@knowncoworking.com. Our purpose in both the physical and virtual spaces is to make connections between people. We're here to help you get connected, get inspired, and get known. Now, let me introduce you to Alex Pierpaoli, Renee Nolan, and Alesia Galati. So we're going to have each of them speak for about 5 minutes, and we'll start with Alex, and then we're going to turn it into a conversation. We would love to get comments and questions from the people who are viewing, so feel free, if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, plop your comments in, they'll show up, and then I can put them on screen. So take it away, Alex. Tell us a little bit about you and give us a little taste about what's going on with those tattoos.
Thanks, Barb. Good morning. Hi, I'm Alex Pierpaoli. I guess my first tattoo was in 1997, and the only places I have tattoos are on my forearms. And I guess for me, it was I was very influenced by 2 people. I guess as a child, both Popeye and my cousin Dee Dee, who had tattooed forearms. And at one point, I had this one sort of traumatic experience where I was with a lot of mechanics at this place where people were taking apart a helicopter. And I can remember everybody had all the men. I was a kid at the time. All the men had big forearms and lots of tattoos. So it was always something I associated with I guess, masculinity and becoming a man. And I've always had major problems with my body and not really feeling in control of it. So for me, a tattoo and putting something on it that I had complete control over, and not only control, but I had a way to charge it with significance. So when I was in college, I was very interested in religion, and I first got exposed to Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung, and they talked a lot about the right-hand path and the left-hand path. And that has to do, the left-hand path is like the dangerous path, the individual outside of society, where he's sort of breaking out of the roles and expectations that are put upon us. And then the right-hand path is sort of the path of this world, you know, where we put on the different personas, the different masks of how we live. So for me, on the first tattoo I got, I don't know if you can see it, is a green anaconda. And this is basically the design. She's, I don't know if you notice here, but she's coiled in the symbol for infinity. Because snakes are, again, with Campbell, talks a lot about comparative mythology. And with snakes are a symbol of like life and rebirth. Life exists. The snake embodies the chief lesson that mythologies put us in accord with. Life exists by taking life. There are no vegetarian snakes. All snakes are killers. Life feeds on life. That's one of the things Campbell talks about, that Schopenhauer tells us that life's a horror. Life is something that should not have been. So we, of course, are alive. So we have to somehow put ourselves in accord with that. And I'm also an English major, and not Moby Dick is one of my favorite novels. And Queequeg is the character that I really like. And when he signed on the Pequod, that's the symbol he used, which of course makes sense because he comes from Polynesian islands, where they had their beliefs definitely put that sort of cyclical nature of life, like a snake. It keeps going forward, shedding off its skin, shedding off the past, coming out anew. So I really like that imagery. Plus, with an anaconda, I've always had problems with weight. The anaconda is the heaviest snake in the world, most massive snake. So for me, it made sense. But I don't know, that might be, I think, 5 minutes, so we'll get onto my others later.
Okay, that sounds good. And I had never heard, I've heard part of that story before, but I hadn't heard it connected to your tattoos about the masculinity. And I think that's really cool, because one of the things I know Renee is going to talk about is femininity in relation to tattoos. So we're going to move to Renee now. So, all right, take it away, Renee. What do you want us to know?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting me be part of this today. I was infatuated with tattoos growing up. I had an Uncle Wally, who was my favorite, who was a biker. And this is the 70s. So Uncle Wally had a tattoo on a motorcycle. So as soon as I was able, I wanted a tattoo on a motorcycle. But I had this general fear of permanency. Like, I always worried about, like, what if I got something? And I was a very anxious person. And also I always saw it as definitely a masculine thing. I have two bands around my ankles that were, at the time I started getting tattoos around the mid 90s. All my friends worked at tattoo shops, or their wives were piercers, or I was in a circle of musicians. Like, I always grew up looking at musicians, and musicians always had tattoos. So I was trying to play the role of a musician. So I think she's going to share those are my ankles. Those are sound waves. And I got those later in my life. I think I was 30 when I got those. And they're both ankles are done. Because at the time this is my other piece. And I can talk about it in a second. I got the sound waves because even though I was a musician, my self-esteem was very low, and I didn't really read music too much. But I was a sound engineer at the time. So I kind of saw it. So that sound wave is an actual song that I wrote in my 20s. And this is before, where now you can get a sound wave and they can actually play the sound wave. So, like, which is crazy. But that was my piece. And also I was trying to be very masculine when I got those. Like I was working out a lot, and I was trying to have this like fear-based expression. And like I wanted people to be scared of me because I was terrified of everything. And also I was working as a stagehand sound engineer. So I was just surrounded by just really hard people that worked really long hours and had tattoos and been to prison and, and I was just like, I tried to play the role. It did not really work out. The piece that Barb showed is my half sleeve. I've always wanted a half sleeve. I've always wanted a full sleeve. I've always wanted a chest piece. But it's the story is basically it's a Buddhist story about it's based on a woman walking in the woods, and she starts getting chased by a tiger. She gets to the end of this cliff, and to get away from the tiger, she runs down she starts climbing down this vine. Well, halfway down the vine, there's a tiger at the bottom of the cliff, and so she's like, well, what now? And she looks over, and there's a mouse eating the vine. And at the time that I was hearing this, I was going through a lot of traumatic, emotional things, and it just kind of felt like my life. It felt like, everything was going wrong. And then the woman in the story looks over and sees a strawberry, this ripe strawberry, and she just goes over and she eats it. And that's kind of the whole basis. Like there's life, there's death, and then there's all this stuff in between, and we just have to go for joy. So I got that tattoo, and it was interesting where I noticed tattoo to be masculine, but it was this feminine feature. And when I got the tattoo, and this is probably 12 or 13 years before I figured out or dealt with being transgendered, that there was this figure. And if we show the picture again, the woman's face is complete stillness and complete serenity, which is something I've always searched for. And when I got the tattoo, I just kind of looked at it and said, no matter how bad things get, I'm going to hold that. She's at from this thing, there's this tiger coming out, and this is death. This is life. This is everything. And she's just serene. And I've always, like I look at this more and more each day. And so in the future, I think I almost have 5 minutes. Through my journey, monarch butterflies are my spirit animal. Whenever I'm having a hard time, or I literally worry if I'm doing the right thing, a monarch will show up. It's just beautiful. So I'm going to get a whole chest piece from here up of just a giant monarch once everything kind of settles down. But
so my spirit animal is butterfly. I didn't know that. I don't have a particular butterfly. I just know, like, for me, it's the metamorphosis, because I have transitioned and blossomed so much in my life. But thank you so much. And now, Alicia. So I definitely want people to know, before you go into your tattoos, that you're a podcast manager, because I met Alicia on the something summit. I can't remember what the name of it was. And she audited my podcast, because I have a podcast that's called Fragmented to Whole: Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. And she audited it for me and gave me all kinds of fantastic suggestions. So if you're a podcaster, you definitely want to be in connection with her. So tell us just a tiny little bit about that, and then tell us about your tattoos.
Yeah. So yes, I'm Alicia Galati, and I'm a full service podcast manager, meaning that my clients record and I handle everything else, all the back end, all of the strategy, all of the helping them create their content, all that fun stuff. Kind of dove headfirst into it after getting laid off due to COVID, and have not looked back since. It's been very incredible and life-changing in some really great ways. But yeah, so thinking back to the first time I got a tattoo, and I grew up very fundamentalist Christian. I do not subscribe to that at all. And I'm actually very openly anti-organized religion, but grew up in that and grew up in a cult. And I actually have a podcast about growing up in a cult. My sister and I do it. It's my hobby. And so tattoos were always viewed as like you're marking yourself. It's the mark of the beast. It's this bad thing. And so I knew that if I ever did get a tattoo, it would have to be like on the down low and I would not be able to tell anyone. And so that's what I did for my first tattoo. I got a rose about the size of my fist and it's on my lower back, my right lower back. And I went with a friend. I was 18, so I could sign off that, this is what I want. And I got it, and I didn't tell my mom for about 2 weeks. And then when I finally did tell her, she was like, "Oh, it's so pretty. That's nice. Did it hurt?" Like she didn't care really. But it was just that fear around like expressing myself in any kind of way that wasn't the way in which I grew up was difficult for me to really be able to like share that and express that. And so since then, every 2 years ish, I get a new tattoo. And so I've got quite a few. The first two didn't really have any type of meaning really. But then the last two, and I'm actually due for a new one soon, but the last two, they do have more meanings. And I can dive into those. But yeah, the first one was the rose. And then the second one was on my lower hip. And after having 2 kids, I don't really ever see that one. So I always forget that I have it sometimes. But it's kind of a vine with like some little rosebuds going up my lower hip in my front. And so, yeah, that's me. And I can get into the bigger, more meaningful pieces as we go through each of those.
Okay, so I'm intrigued that you said there was no meaning behind the first one when you made it very clear there was meaning and it was about self-expression.
Yes.
And also the femininity of it, because most women that I know, especially years ago, not so much now, but if they have a tattoo, it's a rose or a butterfly. Those are like the 2 things that, that women get. And now that I'm saying that, it's funny, like Renee, now that you have transitioned and you identify as a trans woman, the butterfly is the one, that you want to get there. But before I ask questions, do any of you want to ask each other anything, or because I have like a million questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Alicia, I'd like you to show your back.
Okay.
And I'm going to put you on the full screen for this so that people can see it. Oh, oops, wrong person. Sorry. That's right. I have to click on the actual person I want to see. Okay, so tell me, I see an owl. I see the moon. Can you stand up just a touch? Because I feel like we're missing. Yeah. It's hard to tell what's at the bottom there. What are we seeing?
That is a buck.
Okay.
And then the owl is has its claws around the Gemini constellation.
Okay. All right. You can turn around now. So what's that all about?
So my mom transitioned in 2019 due to a drug overdose. And she had struggled with drugs for the majority of her life. And I knew that I wanted to do something to commemorate her and kind of embody her on my body. Mm-hmm. And so her spirit animal was the owl. She was obsessed with every kind of owl you could think of, and deer. So the owl and the deer. So you got the big owl, and then her dates are up against the wings. Okay. And then the moon in the middle, when she was born and when she transitioned, it was both a crescent moon. And so that's like her embodiment and her going, like just kind of that life cycle. And I thought that was so fascinating that it was the crescent both times. And then Gemini being her sign. And then in the corner, here, I'll see if I can show you here.
Nope. I saw there's a little symbol down there.
Yes. So the little symbol, and I can see if I can pull it up right there.
Okay. Yep.
So that's the symbol. And there are 5 kids, and I'm the first one. And then my youngest brother, Zion, is the youngest. And so this was her version of, so there's all of our initials into one symbol that she expressed as meaning one love. And so there's A, let's see if you could see them. There's A, R, J, Z, and M. And so she wanted to like encompass all of our initials on one symbol that she expressed as one love. And so all of my siblings and I decided that when we do get commemorative tattoos of her, that it will have that symbol on each of them. So
very cool. So what occurs to me is that this seems very pagan. And you mentioned having grown up in a very fundamentalist Christian family. And so like the fact that you even know that there was a crescent moon the day your mom was born and died, like most people don't know that kind of stuff. You want to say anything about any of that?
Yeah. So when we left the cult, and it was a fundamentalist Christian cult. It was a women's program that was supposed to be 18 months long, and we were there for 10 years.
Ooh.
Yes. And it was because they focused on a lot of what fundamentalist Christianity does is you are weak, you are incapable of dealing with your issues, you need the authority of the church and of your leadership in your life in order to make any decisions. And so it doesn't empower people to move past their issues and past their hangups and their addictions and things like that, because they're reliant so much on someone instead of the strength in themselves. And so after we left, I kind of had to really just drop all of my beliefs and then pick up ones that I said, okay, is this mine? Do I believe this? Or is this something I've been taught my whole life? And so I started diving into oracle cards, tarot cards, crystals, just really getting in touch with nature and the earth and the moon. And like, I'm obsessed with the moon. So when by the time she had transitioned, I was already like moon obsessed. And so that's where that like, okay, I want to embody that as well in there.
Yeah. Okay. And then, Alex, I know that you had more that you wanted to say about your tattoos. You want to jump in here and say a little something, and then.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, first, I think it's I think it's kind of cool that both Renee and I were influenced by biker relatives. For her, it was Uncle Wally. For me, it was Cousin Dee Dee. Both Harley riders, I assume. So for me, one of the things, once I added to the Anaconda a sort of a space scene. I don't know if you could see it at all here.
Yeah.
But it's the right here at my wrist is the sun, and it's all the planets out to Jupiter, and then it's also the Schumacher-Levy 9 comet. I don't know if you remember when that happened. Hit Jupiter, and for me, this is sort of I was always somebody who was very into science, but I was arithmophobic, and the math really scared me off probably around 8th grade or so. And so I read a lot about science, but I don't, I can't do the math. So I never went into it as a field, but I've been fascinated by it, especially cosmology, because that's one of the things about myths is they keep us up with our science, right? That's what they're meant for. So that's really the edge of what we're learning is astrophysics and cosmology and stuff. So of course I'm very interested in that, and it could very well be that that's one of the ways that life got here, was some of the elements were sort of got here by a comet strike, or so I don't know. So I wanted to have that because this is sort of my view of creation. So I wanted to have that, and then on the other side is an underwater scene. Yeah, I can't really get that on there. But on this side, it's I went with one of my heroes is Spider. Oh yeah, you could share those, I think. So one of my heroes is Spider-Man, and I wanted to pose him in a similar position as the anaconda. So if you could see, so there's sort of like a symmetry there. And then I also have, I'm a big boxing guy, a boxing writer. So I have Marvelous Marvin Hagler is one of my favorite fighters. And that is an instant at the end of the first round of the Hagler-Hearns fight, right at the bell, where he just sort of looks back at Tommy Hearns as if to say, I'll meet you back here in 60 seconds. And it's one of the most just furious rounds of boxing ever. And then the third one is, I don't know if I can get this at all. Yeah, it's the Egyptian god Thoth, which I'm a writer. And actually, I
do that again? Okay.
Yeah, so I fused this one. I fused some of. I was raised Roman Catholic, but my view of spirituality is kind of like a gigantic buffet. So I actually, even though it's an ancient Egyptian god of writing. I made him had the artist Louis Martins color him purple, which is in Christianity, that's the color of the resurrected man. So I kind of wanted to fuse that. And one of the things how I did that guy is because if you're familiar with Egyptian art, most of it looks like this. It's all sideways. But I wanted this arm to have more like dynamic, you know, Spider-Man and Hagler. So these are really athletic, active guys. So I wanted to pose him kind of like he's looking at you. So that's how we made it.
I love how you have like an actual model.
Well, that's what, because I did when I saw this, I bought it because I knew eventually I want a tattoo of him. And the day that I went in there, yeah, because most of my tattoos are from stencils. You know, where you work with the artist and they come up with it and they put it on. Like I'm sure Alicia's back, that must have been a great big stencil. But see, when Z at Studio Z in New Haven did this space scene, he actually did it with a ballpoint pen. I sat there, he drew it on, and then tattooed it.
Wow.
That was really cool.
Yeah, wonderful. Renee, do you want to say more about your tattoos?
I think I want to talk about the general tattoo culture.
Okay.
Because when I started getting into it, it was 94, 95. All my friends were, I literally got an apartment because my friends worked at a tattoo shop and someone was moving out and I moved in because it was like tattoo artists and skateboarders and musicians and punks. And we're all kind of, you know, trying to figure out how to be adults. I'm still figuring that out.
Good. Well said. Good way to put it. Trying to figure out how to be adult.
Yeah. So, but it was all guys. All guys did the tattoos. I didn't know any women. I knew women that were piercers, but I didn't know anyone that was tattoo artists. So I got to the point where I wanted to work on these tattoos, but I was having a problem. I would work with, and I have nothing against guys. I don't, but
This is not one. Yeah.
There was a certain stigma or certain machismo that they all had, and I couldn't handle the clickiness of it all. So once I got this last sleeve, which is about 12 years ago, I kind of stopped. It really is the culture. The culture of tattooing is really, it's. I do put it towards the more of the tattoo shows, but Kat Von D, who was a big thing even before TV in the tattoo world. I have tattoo magazines from the early 2000s. That's her when she's like 17. So I really, and Instagram has exploded so many things with tattooing that I follow like a ton of artists that are women that are tattooed and all the work that I want to continue doing. I want to just work with female artists because I feel like I can be more collaborative with them. And they're a really great tattoo artist in New Britain, or Bristol, I believe now, Nikki Trainer. And I was supposed to get a tattoo in March. It was going to be, it's the transgendered sign with the pride flag inside. But if you know that there's a circle in the center of that, and then the circle, I was going to put a triangle because it was to mark, my not coming to terms, but coming to serenity about being transgendered, and also of being sober, 2 years at the time. It's supposed to be back in March. Unfortunately, I didn't get to get the tattoo because of COVID, and I'm still kind of waiting because she's backed up. But I'm really glad we did this because at the time I was going to have it positioned in one place. Now talking and listening to Alicia, I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to put that somewhere else. So now I might have completely changed it all up. So generally having just it be more accepting, like to go to a tattoo convention before, you had to go to like Philadelphia, you had to go like New York, like you had to go farther away, not in Connecticut. In Connecticut, there was, New Haven was a great place. Hope Gallery, New Haven is where I got my work done. But in general, I've just seen it it's more accepting. And also the work is getting better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stuff that can be done now is it's almost mind blowing compared to 20 years ago. The inks are better, the procedures are better, the shops are better, and people are really looking. Like I like the idea about tattooing that it helps you create your body. There's an amazing stand-up comedian called Margaret Cho that I love to death.
Love her.
And she had so much body issues and images. And when she started not even really getting into shape, but she started getting tattoos, it made her feel sexier. It made her feel more her. And I'm really excited we're doing this because I'm super jazzed now getting tattoos.
Yeah. When you just said that, it reminded me, I've been intrigued by tattoos for a long time. And I think the first story that I ever heard that I identified with, I met a woman, and again, this was like 30 years ago before the big tattoo craze. And I met her at a party, and she had one tattoo that she had in honor of her brother when he died. And then she had another tattoo, and that was of the moon. And I don't remember the story. And then she had a tattoo of the sun, and this was on the back of her shoulder. And that was when she finished therapy. And I felt like, oh, that makes total sense. Like I'm marking my body to commemorate a particularly important event in my life. And then after that, the next thing I heard was women who had mastectomies having tattoos of like trees so that all of the scarring was incorporated into the tattoo. And I was like, oh my God, that is so beautiful. And what an incredible, option that is. And then I do also want to say what I was saying to these folks here when we first started. So I started graduate school to study sociology in '95. And one of the first people that I met was a guy who was doing the sociology of tattoos. And at that time, it was really rare that you saw tattoos on anybody other than like bikers and sailors. And it was very masculine. And this guy, I remember going out to happy hour and him pulling his pants down so he could show his legs. And the waitress was like, pull up your pants, because apparently he did it all the time. But what he was showing us was the various tattoos, and he had his whole body mapped out. He knew what he was going to have tattooed. He knew who the artist was and what the image was going to be and all that sort of thing. And I was like blown away by that. And I'm sure because he started that before the tattoo craze, he's probably making millions now. But I would say since then, I've always been really intrigued by tattoos. I don't have one. I have no desire to get one. And Renee, like you said, this idea of permanence, because I have changed so many times in so many ways over the course of my life. I can't imagine any symbol that would feel like it represents me and it's going to represent me for the rest of my life. I don't know, but it's just not something I feel compelled to do. But again, I'm inherently interested in them. So Renee, you said there was something that Alicia said that caused you to think maybe I'm going to put that tattoo in another place. What was it that she said, and where were you thinking of putting it, and where do you think you might now?
Oh, Barb. Said anything, I know you. Originally, I was going to put it right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be, right there, because I wanted to be able to see it. But this amazing thing of transitioning, this version anyways. I'm not done yet. it's been about a year and a half, 2 years. So my physical body is starting to equal to what my brain has been thinking all these years. So there's a more of a love that I've ever experienced. So now there's like the idea of having that same tattoo, but having it in just a space for me, but also in a space that's very alluring, a very, like the little hip crease, like right above, like it was right there. Like if I was in the mirror and I saw that would be something that is special just for me. And then also, I was, as Alex was talking, is I have loved the Lord of the Rings since I was small, and I'm talking about Rankin Bass. I'm talking about very old school. I've loved it since I was little. I have every version of it. I have the record with the book, because that's what happened back in the 70s. That you didn't get Disney Plus. You got a record and a book, and you sat there for hours. So I've always wanted to do a full sleeve of Lord of the Rings, but the old school Rankin Bass, and now that Alex has spoke of that, I don't want to eat up a whole arm just for one thing. So this has now become the Lord of the Rings arm. So thank you, Alex.
Interesting. So it seems like people need to sit around and chat about tattoos more often. So Alicia and Alex, have you had any kind of insights from this conversation about your future tattooing?
I would say not in particular. I'm the kind of person, like I said, where like I do have that span of time in between getting tattoos, and I actually took a break when pregnant. Now that I'm thinking about it, when I have 2 kids, and so in that span, taking that break, and then I didn't talk about this one, but it's Robert Frost quote. It says, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And so, like, to your point, Barb, of like the permanency of, something, Robert Frost has always been like one of my favorite writers, and I just love everything that he's ever written and all of his poetry, and ever since I was little. And when I got this one, when I got a promotion at work, I got a pretty hefty bump in my salary, and I was like, I'm getting a tattoo. It's going to be great. And so, but I hadn't been thinking about it for a while. And so I was like, this is something that's always been with me. And I always do want to take the road less traveled. I do, like, Alex was talking about the left-hand path and the right-hand path, and I'm very like into that kind of stuff. And so, and this is before I was really into that stuff, just like really being like, I want to be different. I don't want to conform to what everyone else is doing. And I think all of us, collectively are in alignment with that, like just being who you are and being who you want to be. But even if I stopped liking Robert Frost, it's still that memory of the time in my life. And getting tattoos is something that you never really forget, that moment in the chair, getting it done, and what you were feeling in that moment. So it kind of has that pull and that tie back to different times in your life too. I feel like that you might have, a year you might have overlooked. So it makes me think about that kind of stuff.
So why 2 years in between each one?
To give myself time to really think, and because they are so addicting. Otherwise, I'd get one every week.
Why addicting? What is it that's addicting about tattoos?
Endorphin buzz.
Okay.
You get in there and you're like, there's so many pretty things, and there's like, and someone's like paying attention to you. I don't want to sound like,
oh, that's true.
like,
yeah,
you're everything for this amount of time, and that's
right. Yeah, and there's only so much body space, so you do have to be rather selective about what you want to do. So, have any of you ever been concerned about having tattoos and how that? I'm thinking particularly professionally, like in whatever profession that you're in, that like having a tattoo and having people know that would impact your professional reputation or anything like that.
At first I was, but I think that well, for my experience, actually, when I got my tattoo, it was like 3 days or 2 days before I started it was on a Friday and I started a new job on a Monday. So I literally went to the new job with this, and it was my first tattoo, and it was big. It was the whole anaconda, and I didn't really get that they heal when they're dry. You moisturize it to promote it, and everything like that. But I was keeping it like sopping with A&D ointment. So I literally started a job stinking of like a and with this big seeping thing. And it wasn't until about a week later when I went in to see the tattoo artist where he was like, "What are you doing? Why is there so much grease on it?" I was like, "I thought you said to keep it moist." He's like, "Not that moist." So yeah, but I think going through that, and I think that the world has changed. Now I think you see people, hands used to be a taboo area. Very often now you see people with tattoos on their hands. Anything below the elbow was taboo. Anything above the neck. But now you see people with full neck tattoos. I think the world has changed.
I still say the neck one's a little taboo. Like there's a rule in my house. My daughter gets tattoos. I can't really stop her anymore. But I was like, you're not allowed to get a neck tattoo unless you have $1 million in the bank.
Why $1 million?
That just means you're safe and rich. I don't know.
Okay, so she doesn't have to worry about like not being able to get a job because she has a neck tattoo.
It's all about fear. It's all fear for me.
Okay.
So, I do have a question for everybody. Does anybody have a tattoo that they regret? Because I do. I do have one I regret.
No, I tweaked this a little that I kind of regret because I made the artist turn the tail a little, and he was right. It was going to lie a little flatter, so that bothers me a little. But I don't know.
And so I have two issues. One, my very, very first tattoo was after I got married. We thought this really 23, by the way. So I got a heart with a little keyhole, and then my wife at the time, see how this goes, at the time, got the key. And so my partner now has seen this tattoo for 12 years, and she hates it. That's why part of it is why I'm getting the tattoo. But the other thing is, though, when I got the bands on my legs, at the time it was tribalish, it was masculine, and now that I'm trying to present more feminine, there's times where like, and Alicia, you'll know about the women of this will know, is like, no, to wear pants that go all the way down to your ankles doesn't really happen in the woman's fashion. So I have these tattoos. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't the greatest idea, but so this
it feels like lace at the bottom of your pants.
Yeah, it's totally. So I have to work all that in now, but yeah. So that's. But I understand. Those are just little memories of where I've been, you know.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. So
I think that's the big significance of it, is that for me, I've always struggled with my body and felt at odds being in my own body. And I've gained and lost massive amounts of weight. I've been in really great shape and then been a pure couch potato. So for me, tattoos are something where I have complete control over it, and it could have so much significance. And when I go through it, I am changed afterwards. And I think that's the part that I liked. I mean, I mentioned Moby Dick before. I remember there's another, it used to be that sailors, when they went around the horn, they'd get a earring. So I think that that's kind of the thing. Now, not everybody looks at it that way. I mean, that's one of the, I follow the sport of boxing, and I think, you know, like Alicia said, that, you know, when you have a big chunk of money, sometimes it's like, well, now it's time for a tattoo. And so many fighters do that. They make a big purse, and then you see them in their next fight and they have a gigantic, regrettable tribal tattoo. And I don't know, for me, I like them to be very unique and have a lot to do with me. And that's why all of mine, you know, I thought about a long time. But you're right. It depends on how, I don't know. I guess I do have this, like, I sit with it a while before I make the decision. Like the next two, I'm thinking of three more. One is a fighter that I've written about from the turn of the 19th century or 20th century rather, and then also a Dracula and a King Kong. Those are the three I'm thinking about, but I'm thinking of going on my calves. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Well, Mike Tyson even talked about. Oh, sorry, Barb.
No, say that again.
Mike Tyson has the face tattoo, which everybody knows. It's in the Hangover movies. But if you watch some of his documentaries, he got it because he wanted to change himself, basically.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be Mike Tyson anymore. He wanted to be this other being. And a lot of the stuff he did, especially when he did spend time in prison, he had that time of reflection, and he came out with all these different tattoos of thinkers because of it's part of his struggle. You know, trying to find healing through this beautification. I see it as beautification. So So go ahead.
So Alicia, I'm sorry, I thought you were done, Renee.
I am.
Yeah, okay. So Alicia, you mentioned you're overdue. Do you know what your next tattoo is going to be?
Yes. So my husband and I started getting tattoos well before my husband did. And he's like the kind of person who's like, we have to be equal. Like, I need to have as many as you have. And I'm like, well, you started late, so too bad. But we were both planning on getting, we both are big Harry Potter fans. And so we were going to get a tattoo where his would say, after all this time, and then mine would say always, which is the scene from the end. You'll know if you've seen it. But not sure when we're going to get those or where. And I think we're going to do those in like a watercolor kind of thing. But we're looking to do half sleeve next. And so I wanted to do something with the moon phases. And so I was thinking about getting like each of the moon phases across, and then almost like the hanging of a wind chime or something like that, where it's like kind of hanging down and just very moon and witchy inspired kind of thing. So that'll probably be next, but I've always wanted to get something that represented family. And I love drabs. Drabs are my favorite animals in the world. And so probably on this shoulder or on my leg or something, getting like a family of drabs and in like maybe a watercolor or a more realistic color. I'm not sure yet, but those are the ones I'm thinking about.
Yeah. So I actually believe earlier, Renee, you said in terms of the sound waves that now they have the technology to make tattoos that have sound waves that can actually be played. Is that what you really said?
Yeah, that's the thing.
What?
So you get a little sound wave, like when it first started up, the marketing of it was like, it was like someone took it was a phone message from their grandmother who passed, and they got this thing, and you play over this little barcode, this it's wave file basically, and it would play the audio, and it was just like, so when I started walking around when this is coming out, everybody thought I had gotten one, and I got this back in 2001, 2002.
Yeah. So what is the reader thing that plays the actual music? What is that, like an app on your phone or something?
Yeah, an app on the phone.
That it is now.
It's like a QR reader.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So.
Okay.
Oh, and it can read the tattoo, and then you hear the.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
wow. I mean, to me, that's like beyond artificial intelligence. That's insane.
I knew that we were in a special place when one morning I opened up the internet and I saw what the sunrise looked like from Mars, and I was like, we're in a different space now. So
Yeah.
Change what I thought the world was supposed to be. So.
Yeah. The last thing I want to ask about is, I know that probably as long as there's been recorded history, there has been tattooing and body marking, and that there are tribes where, it's rites of passage and your body is marked. For example, I've been watching the Joseph Campbell series on the power of myth, and he talks about particular cultures where the rite of passage from childhood to adulthood for women is the onset of menstruation. Their bodies are changed. There's physical evidence of it, and there isn't for boys. So what often happens is they go through a rite of passage with the men. They're taken away from their mother. Your mother is no good for you anymore. They go through some whatever, initiation rites, and then their bodies are marked so that everybody knows this is a man now. This is no longer a boy. So, I know that happens, but I think of like the people that I'm thinking of specifically, I believe they're called the Maori people from Australia, who it's very common to see like literally their entire faces tattooed. And I just wondered if any of you had any knowledge about any of that, or if you had any thoughts about that and wanted to say anything about the history of tattooing in the course of human history.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson's his is I think it's New Zealand, and Mike Tyson's face tattoo is a Maori. I think what's his name, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. His is a Maori tattoo. They've become very popular, because their tattoos are amazing. Yeah, I mean, I remember when they uncovered a bog mummy. Which was I think 10,000, no, maybe not that old, but maybe 5,000 years old. He had tattoos on him, on his fingers, as a matter of fact. My dad was very into archaeology. So as a kid, I can remember being read as a bedtime story, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and Thor Heyerdahl's Kon-Tiki. So we learned about Easter Island, and he had lived in Papua New Guinea. So he told us stories about Papua New Guinea, and I think in Power Myth they might talk about that. That ritual is there's worship of the crocodile, and the boys, when they become men, their entire back is scarified, feel like crocodile skin. Yeah, I don't know. For me, that all that stuff was part of why I wanted to do them. And that's the thing. When people talk about it, they're like, oh, no, it doesn't hurt. It does kind of hurt. That's part of why I'm kind of a sickie, but that's part of why I enjoy it, is that it does hurt. I mean, the anaconda, that was about 4 hours, that first session. And yeah, by the end of it, you are it's kind of grueling. It's a lot of adrenaline and endorphins that are pumping out. And then the next day is where it hurts. And actually, Renee, I wanted to ask you this because I noticed you have a lot of red. Red, for some reason, that hurts like hell. I don't know why.
So the whole kimono, I don't know if you can see from here, is all red because I just love red. But honestly, back here is this blue right on the tendon. It was really, really intense. But when you get more deeper in, they're just like, because this is 13 hours, half sleep. So it was, I sat for 6 hours for the outline, and I came back 4 hours for the outline. I came back twice, doing 3 hour sessions, 7 hour sessions. So 13 altogether. But
wow.
Yeah. So when I started getting into tattooing, like there was the internet. I'm old. The internet didn't exist like this. So I would be going to bookstores and finding tattoo magazines, and the tribal thing was just starting to kind of pop. And they brought it back. So tattooing came to the Western civilization through the sailors going down through the Caribbean and Fiji, and they started bringing the tattoos back, and that's how. And then it started rolling through not just sailors, but the armed forces, and that's how you battle was. And it was all messaging basically.
Yeah. And
and also there's another extent for myself is, when I grew up, it was bikers, and so if you wanted to present dangerous, like don't mess with me, you had tattoos. It was almost like a shield. And I think people kind of look for that sometimes. They want to have that it's their armor. For me, with having so much body dysphoria. I never liked my arms, but like I like this arm because I see beauty in it. That's what I'm like. You can almost cover up something you don't like with something you do like.
Yeah, that doesn't resonate with me for tattoos, but I can tell you my whole life I hated my feet. And then I started decorating them by painting my toenails and wearing toe rings. And now I love my feet.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. Well, we're running out of time here. So I want to give you each a minute or two to say any last things that you haven't had an opportunity to say. If you want, Alicia, you want to start?
Sure. I don't think I have anything.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to. I just want to give you the opportunity.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, this has been incredible. It's been great meeting you, Alex and Renee, and getting to know more people and discussing this, because I don't think I've ever like sat down and had a conversation about my tattoos or about tattooing with anyone and like really dove into the different meanings and stuff. So this has been really enjoyable.
Yeah, very cool. Alex, anything else you want to share?
I agree. This has been a lot of fun, and I think I'm a really visual person, and I love when I see tattoos on people, and I always imagine that there's a story behind them, and I'm a details guy. So this has been a lot of fun to hear about this. So I'm very grateful you invited me.
Yeah, Renee.
I just really thank you for the opportunity to do something that doesn't involve recovery or work right now. I don't really have hobbies. I'm always working, so I'm like, oh, maybe tattoos are going to start becoming my hobby. And I do want to say one other thing. Alicia, you talked about Robert Frost. I literally have Robert Frost book on my nightstand. I absolutely adore them. And just to know that we have this great experience, we have this way to express ourselves and really be connected to it. It's a really wonderful thing. So thank you all for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. If you guys don't mind, I want to take you off screen for a moment, but if you'll hang out while I conclude, I'd really appreciate it. So thank you all so much. This was really cool. I knew that it would be. I didn't know how cool it would be, but I'll see you in a minute off screen.
Okay.
Thank you
Right
so
back.
much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm really excited about this conversation. Alicia, Alex, and Renee for sharing their stories. Very cool. I do want to let you know that next week on Connection Corner, we have Quan Grant, who will be talking about finding your style through fashion for men. And his work is specifically geared toward the everyday man. So he says, the man who was never interested in fashion. And that will be on the 21st. Which is Wednesday, and it'll be at 2 p.m. And I want to remind you that on Tuesday morning at 8:30, Julia will be doing part 2 of holiday advertising online, and she's specifically focused on Google Ads. And again, this coming Friday, we're going to have Amy, I believe it's Worsnowski. I could be butchering her last name. She's a professor at the Yale School of Management, and she'll be talking about how her research informs what we've learned since March about working environments at home and at work and how to optimize them. And even if you are watching this after the show has been live, if you have comments, feel free to leave them, and we'll get them to the people if they need to go to someone else, but we'll be sure to take a look at them. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the day.